He was the smallest wolf they brought to Yellowstone, the runt of his litter, gray where his brothers were black and heavy. They knocked him down, they tackled him. He ate last every time. Nobody watching him in 1995 would have guessed what he'd become. Because this bullied little wolf grew up to lead the largest pack in the park. And he raised an orphaned pup who became the most famous wolf in the world. Everything people admire about that wolf, the courage, the loyalty, the mercy toward beaten enemies, he learned it by watching the runt. His name was Wolf 8. And this is the story of the underdog who changed what we know about wolves. To understand what he walked into, you have to understand what Yellowstone had lost.
For thousands of years, wolves had shaped that landscape. Then, in the 1920s, park rangers killed the last of them. Not poachers, rangers. It was policy. For 70 years, Yellowstone had no wolves at all. The elk grew unafraid. The willows disappeared from the riverbanks. Something essential had been cut out of that place, and everyone could feel it. So in 1995, they brought them back. Wild wolves captured in Alberta, trucked south across the border into a park that had forgotten them. Among them was a small gray yearling with a number instead of a name. They held the wolves in enclosures first, acclimation pens, to let them settle before release. And in that pen, the pecking order was obvious to anyone watching. Wolf 8 had 3 brothers, all of them black, all of them big, built like their father.
He was gray, and he was small. They bullied him relentlessly, tackled him, pinned him, pushed him aside. He was the last to eat because the others made sure of it. If you were placing bets on which of those wolves would survive, you would not have picked him. But the man watching through the spotting scope saw something else. His name was Rick McIntyre, Yellowstone's wolf interpreter, a man who would eventually log more than 100,000 wolf sightings. And one day, early on, the small wolf did something that stopped him. A grizzly bear came toward the young wolves. Understand the mismatch here. An adult grizzly outweighs a wolf several times over. Against a bear that size, a young wolf has no realistic chance in a fight. The obvious move, the sensible move, was to scatter. The runt forward, the smallest wolf of the group, the one who lost every scuffle with his own brothers, put himself between the bear and his family. He held his ground, and the bear backed off. McIntyre would spend decades watching wolves after that. But that moment stayed with him. The first sign that size and courage are not the same thing. Not long after, a man with a rifle changed the course of Wolf 8's life. Elsewhere in the park, another reintroduced wolf, a breeding male, was shot and killed illegally. The shooter later claimed he thought the animal was a dog. That wolf left behind a mate and 8 pups. A female alone with 8 young pups is a family on the edge of collapse. Wolf pups need enormous amounts of food.
They need protection from rival packs, from bears, from everything. One adult cannot do it, not for 8. And into that desperate situation wandered a yearling wolf, barely more than a teenager himself, the runt, the one his brothers had pushed around. She accepted him. And just like that, the smallest wolf in Yellowstone became an alpha male with 8 pups to feed that were not his. He should have failed. He had no experience leading anything. He had never raised a pup. He was young, small, and suddenly responsible for a family of 10 in a landscape full of rival packs. He rose to it completely. He hunted for them, and he turned out to be a superb hunter, bringing down elk far bigger than himself. He fed pups that carried none of his blood. He played with them. He taught them.
And when rival packs came for his family, the wolf who had been bullied his whole young life did not back down. Not once. Despite his size, despite his inexperience. The runt had become the thing his family needed him to be. Among those 8 pups was one who would matter more than the others. He'd be known as Wolf 21. And he grew into everything Wolf 8 was not. Enormous, powerful, physically dominant in a way 8 never was. But 21 followed him everywhere. Even fully grown, even when he could have overpowered his stepfather without effort, 21 deferred to him, treated him as the higher-ranking wolf, watched what he did. Because 8 was the only father he had ever known. And what 8 did, 21 learned. Which brings us to the most important thing Wolf 8 ever did. He fought a rival male, a bigger wolf, an alpha of another pack. And despite the size difference, 8 won. He penned him. In wolf territorial fights, this is usually the end for the loser. A penned rival is a dead rival. That is simply how it tends to go. Wolf 8 let him up and let him walk away. Standing nearby, watching all of it, was the young Wolf 21. He would grow into a wolf who never lost a fight in his entire life. Undefeated, feared across the park. And he never killed a single defeated opponent. Not one. Because when he was young, he watched his stepfather win and choose not to. Under Wolf 8, that family became the largest pack in the park. The pups he raised grew up and scattered across Yellowstone, founding packs of their own. His influence spread through the whole ecosystem, not through conquest, but through the simple work of keeping a family alive long enough to grow. And then came the part of his life that must have been hardest. Wolf 21 grew up and left as young wolves do. He became an alpha male himself, leading his own pack in country that bordered his stepfather's. 2 alpha males, neighboring territories, one of them aging, one of them in his prime. In the ordinary logic of wolves, that ends in blood. It never did. Whatever passed between them in those final years, the old wolf and the son he raised never destroyed each other. Something held. Wolf 8 died in his 6th year, not in a war with another pack,
Not at the hands of a man with a rifle, like the wolf whose family he inherited. He died out on his own ground, doing what he had done every season of his adult life, hunting elk to feed his family. An elk is a dangerous animal. A kick can kill a wolf outright. Biologists found no evidence of human involvement and no sign of a fight with other wolves. Just an old injury and a wolf who had finally run out of road. They found him in a log jam along a creek, carried there by the water. 6 years old, the smallest wolf they released. Dead in a river, having spent every year of his adult life feeding somebody else's children. So what does a runt leave behind? Wolf 8 never grew into an impressive animal. He was small when they released him, and he was small when he died. Nothing about him looked like leadership. But when a grizzly came, he stepped forward. When a widowed mother needed help with 8 starving pups, he stayed. When he had a beaten rival at his mercy, he let him live. And a young wolf watched every one of those choices and carried them into a life that made him the most celebrated wolf on earth. We talk a great deal about alpha wolves, about dominance, about fighting your way to the top. Wolf 8 was an alpha male. He got there by being adopted. He kept it by feeding pups that weren't his. The strongest wolf in Yellowstone history learned everything he knew from the weakest one.
The runt his brothers pushed around raised a legend, and then died in a river, hunting for his family, the way he always had. If his story moved you, there's more of the wild waiting here every week. Subscribe and listen for the call of the wild.